happening across the globe and what is the impact of liberalization on the aviation sector, more particularly private participation. That's why third aspect I'm going to look at the privatization, globalization, liberalization, privatization. And today we are all confronted with a lot of technological issues. Today law is, has to mingle with the technology. So we call techno-driven laws, whether it's air law, space law, intellectual property, all the moment when technology happens, law has to follow. So I'm going to touch a bit aspect of digitization, fourth point, or digitalization, whatever you call it, sir. So making the connection, the nexus, the linkage between law and technology, that's fourth aspect. Finally, I would like to speak on COVID pandemic or COVIDization. I use the word, it's a new thing. Of course, I offered last semester paper on COVIDization and its impact on international law, various aspects. So last 3 years, we all witnessed. I need not talk about it's not a history, it's just we can remember very well. So what's happening last 3 years? What kind of positive, negative impacts happened with the COVID or COVIDization? And more particularly, the aviation industry is the major sufferer in this COVID pandemic or COVIDization. So these two aspects I'm going to talk on that. So when I say first aspect, I want to begin my discussion with why aviation law or air transport management, okay, or what is the why we need it. Okay, if you say why we need it, of course, you know that Honorable Vice Chancellor sir was mentioning this, but I'll elaborate on that. So why we required aviation regulations? Why we required aviation law? Why we required air transport management? Because last year, not last year, 2019. I'm giving you statistics of 2019 because 2021, 22, you know that aviation industry suffered a lot. So now it's again regaining. That's why I'm taking some statistics of 2019. If you look at 2019, the global aviation industry carried 4 billion passengers. Okay, and also it every day I'm giving 2019. Every day 1,20,000 flights depart and also carry 12 million passengers. I'm talking about the global context. And it also generated in 2019 statistics 65.5 million jobs, contributing to 2.7 trillion, like I was mentioning, $3 trillion of these things. And we have like 4,000 airports and 1,500 airlines carrying 5,000 aircraft, like all these statistics. So to maintain all these things, apart from that, actually, if you ask me, now you check any given moment of time, 10,000 flights fly across the globe, and every flight follows same rules. Here, no discrimination of developed countries, developing countries, poor countries, all these things. Every country has to follow same rules. If any country miss a fraction of a second, you know what happens. That is the reason why we had to maintain that, regularity, systematic thing. So we need to have a transport regulation. So just to say that why we need this kind of potential is there. That's where the regulatory mechanism is, have to be in place. That's one. How? Okay, you convince we have to regulate aviation. There is no doubt because of its contribution to the global economy, employment, and other things. But how do we do? Here I say that what do you mean by air law or aviation regulations? Okay, air law generally since I have to talk on this. I'll tell you body of rules governing the use of airspace. I'll give you very simple terminology. Okay, don't get into big things in the aviation. So what do you mean by air law? Body of rules governing the use of airspace. Of course, airspace is different from outer space. Where airspace ends, outer space begins. We have a lot of debates, theories. I don't want to go into that. Of course, today the global society. This is an issue which is pending since 1959 in the COPAS. Committee on Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. There is a committee, part of the United Nations, where airspace being outer space, happens. All these things happening, but today countries following. There are a lot of theories also. Countries believing one theory is the functional approach. Up to flights can fly what we call air code, we have air law. Beyond that, space. Okay, we have again, well-developed international space law regime also there. So I'm not going to that, but this is a important thing, we have to talk about, air law means body of rules governing these things. Another term also, law. Of course, before talk about, air law, one should know law. Law is defined by different people in a different context. I'm not going to do that. But since I'm going to touch international air law, one caution I want to give you all is that when we are talking about any international aspect, be cautious. Don't compare international law with municipal law. So when I'm going to talk about air law or international air law, you have to keep in mind that normally law is above everybody. You all know that India constitution is there, we have to follow. But the law which I am going to talk, maybe next 20-25 minutes, is a different. International law normally law between states, that to sovereign states. That's where problem comes. That's why compared to international regulations, domestic regulations are somewhat better. I'm not saying perfect, but comparing to international regulations or international law, domestic regulations are somewhat better because domestic law is enforced through a institutional mechanism. When I say institutional mechanism, legislature to legislate, executive to implement, judiciary to interpret, like parliament, executive, judiciary. Do we have all these things in international context? Have you heard something called parliament, world parliament? Have you heard something called world executive? Of course, we have all heard about world judiciary. What is that? ICJ. But how ICJ get jurisdiction, based on the consent of the states. States have to accept it. So that's the problem with international system. I'm not going to deal that. But what I'm trying to say that when you deal with any international issue, it need not be aviation, you have to have a different approach, different understanding. So that different approaches are mostly international air law, space law, anything operate on the basis of cooperation, coordination, consensus, convincing. These are the methodologies. These are the new approaches we have to adopt so that international law or international air law can be effectively enforced, because there is no supranational authority. Everybody is a sovereign. So that's the one important point I want to tell you all. Okay, coming back to again air law, I said body of rules governing the airspace. Sometimes we use aviation regulations. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by regulations? Why regulations are important, including aviation? Regulation is an authoritative direction to bring about and maintain order in the society. It's a simple thing. This can applicable to any aspect of day-to-day governance. Regulation is an authoritative direction. What for you have to regulate? To maintain order in the society. Of course, to maintain order in the global governance or aviation governance, we need aviation regulations. Okay, how aviation regulations happens? Why aviation regulations are broadly what are the different kinds of aviation regulations? So put it, I know my challenge is that in half an hour I had to discuss. That's why I'm going little fast. But you can ask me. You can stop or ask me. So to put it in summarily, entire aviation regulations, we can look at 4 aspects. One is national regulations. Every country regulates. By the way, how many countries are there in the world? I always get doubt. Any idea? 193 are members of UN. Okay? Yeah, I agree. Also, 193 are members of Chicago Convention, ICAO also. But this is almost, but people say that 200 or 205. We don't know, but around 200. I am using the comfortable word. Around 200 states or countries are there. Out of that, of course, 193 are members of ICAO and also UN also. So this is the one important thing when we look at the international national regulations. Every country regulates. Take example of India. So do we have regulations in India? Yes, India also regulates the aviation industry. To regulate, we need 2 important components. One is legislative component, law. Do we have a law in India? Yes, we have a law in India. There are 15 to 16 important legislations which regulate civil aviation, start from Aircraft Act 1934, Aircraft Rules, Public Health Rules, Air Corporation Act, liability, like that. There are 15 to 16 important legislations are there in India. It is true with any country. Countries like United States of America, they have hundreds of legislations. Countries like Nepal, Bhutan have a piece of legislation. But legislations are important. Legislative component is important. Not mere having a legislation is enough, but we need to have somebody to enforce it. Who enforce it in India? It is the organizational structure I am talking about. It's the Ministry of Civil Aviation, that's called MOCA, Ministry of Civil Aviation. Under that, again, Madam was mentioning, we have a DGCA, that's a regulatory body. Then we have Airports Authority, then airlines, and Bureau of Civil Aviation Security. This is true with any country. Okay, maybe nomenclature will be different. In USA, they call Department of Transport, they call FAA, Federal Aviation Authority. In UK, they call Civil Aviation, Ministry. They call CAA, Civil Aviation Authority. Now, nomenclature may be different, but regulations are there, and it is true with any country. That's one, national. All countries regulate their Second important component of aviation regulations are airlines. Bilateralism. Today, 10,000 of bilateral agreements exist in the aviation industry. You know the distinction between bilateral and multilateral treaty agreement, whatever. Bilateralism is based on the principle of quid pro quo or equivalent. I'll extend this facility to you, you extend. So today there are thousands of bilateral agreements, and India has 116 bilateral agreements with other countries to regulate aviation. So this is the bilateralism. Why bilateralism? All those things. Normally question comes since we have a treaty called Chicago Convention. I'll come to that. But why sometimes these multilateral treaties fail? Then countries have bilateral arrangements or bilateral agreements. That's the second. Third aspect, if you look at aviation, is today lot of aviation activities or air transport activities are regulated through regional mechanisms. Regionalism is a happening thing. Though regionalism started in international relations way back in 1940s with after Second World War, like regional blocks, NATO, CETO, CENTO, Warsaw Pact, all those. But today, regionalism is happening. Regionalism is a synonymous word in the economics, trade. So we have a regional trade agreements, arrangements. The regionalism is also has been percolated into the aviation sector. Today, you say, example, European Union. The best example when we talk about aviation, regionalism, European Union. You know now how European Union happened. Earlier it was called Rome Treaty of 1956 with 6 countries. Later on 12, it was 28 countries. Britain exited, and today we have 27 countries part of that. Like that, we have our own SAR. Like regionalism is also happening, our regional mechanism. Then finally, I just want to touch the global, international. Aviation means global, nothing of domestic. Maybe I'm a student of international, I'm a biased, but that's not, but it is true. So international aviation are everything, whatever I say, all these legislation, it is the part of international air law. That's why, international air law is important, or international aviation regulations. What is the philosophy of air law, whether it's a domestic or international? So the philosophy, the starting point, the jurisprudence of air law is based on the principle of usa esta solum esta estuet culum. Of course, Latin, don't worry, even I don't know how to pronounce. But the meaning is that who owns the land, who owns the sky. Okay, that is the philosophy, that is the jurisprudence. This was a customary principle in international air law. This customary principle has been converted into a conventional principle. Convention means treaty, you all know that. So this principle is now, if you look at almost all important international treaties, part of that. Whether it's a Paris Convention for Regulation of Aerial Navigation, 1919. That's the important landmark treaty after First World War. So then even today, the Chicago Convention. Chicago Convention is the charter, is the Magna Carta. I don't know if we believe in religion. It is like Bible, Quran, Gita, whatever. If any student of or any practitioner of aviation law has to begin with Chicago Convention. Chicago Convention is the law. I am using the word. So this Chicago Convention, if you look at Article 1 of the Chicago Convention, it states that contracting states have a complete and exclusive sovereignty over the airspace above their territory. The principle which I said was incorporated part of the Chicago Convention, Article 1. Of course, time permits. Chicago Convention, you read Chicago Convention, that's important. Yes. So But my problem is that, I can't take more than Honorable Vice Chancellor has given 30, 40 minutes to me because I have to familiarize. How to engage you, how to, discuss with you entire airline in, 30 minutes is difficult. Of course, we teachers have a habit of, I can teach same subject in, 30 minutes, 30 hours, semester, that's a different thing. Okay, anyhow, coming back to this. So the entire airla can be summed up in understanding three P's. PPP. You all know that what is PPP, yes? What is it? It's a known word. What is PPP? Public-private partnership. Yes, but it's not. I'm going to give you other thing. So that is a public air law. Okay? Public air law deals with Chicago regime. Technical, aviation is a technical thing actually. So Chicago regime deals with the technical aspects. Okay, technical general. What I call is the first P is public air law. Chicago regime deals with the technical aspects. Second P is private air law. That's also called, private air law dealing with individuals of different countries. You know that. So private air law relating to liability is called Warsaw system, Warsaw regime. Warsaw regime consisting of the Warsaw Convention 1929 and other conventions and protocols. You know the difference between convention and protocol. So conventions and protocols dealing with the liability. So we have, I think my friend Sandeepa is going to elaborate on that. So I don't want to deal. Then other P. What is the third P? Penal air law. So now I said public air law, private air law, penal air law. So penal air law is nothing but two important components: safety, security. Air safety and security is very important. The sustenance of aviation industry, air transport industry is based on the safety and security. What is safety? Safety is more with technical aspects. Okay, so security is relating to men and cargo. So we have to enforce safety. There is a part of Chicago Convention. There are 19 annexes. It's a unique methodology, the frameworks of Chicago Convention kind. And today I can say that one of the most successful treaty in the world, if you ask me, is the Chicago Convention. So because of the new approach they adopted is the annexes. So there are 19 annexes dealing with different technical aspects. I'm not going to do that, but technology or safety is an important thing. So how will you ensure? What mechanism you adopt? What is the obligations on member countries? All these things done by ECAO. Okay, that's one. Then security. Other important component is relating to men and cargo. Delay of cargo, destruction of cargo, death of passenger. These are all part of the security. We have a very well set international air law dealing with the security, start from Tokyo Convention 1963, A Convention 1970, Montreal Convention 1971, Montreal Protocol 1988. Then we have Plastic Explosives Convention, and then finally, today the important treaty is the Montreal Convention of 1990. So these are all part of that. So I'm not going to, but this is what I thought. I'll give you an idea. Okay. So this is one aspect I thought I'll say. I hope you are getting. So the idea is that what do we mean by air law? How aviation regulations happens. Three important aspects. Of course, each one elaborate. We can go on elaboration. I'm not going to do that. So this is one. The second aspect is again we have to look the contemporary issues. Okay, but if time permits, again those who are interested, they all can refer this Chicago Treaty or Chicago Convention. The ECAO, other important the organization which I mentioned again is the ECAO. The parties to the Chicago Convention, ipso facto parties to the ECAO. ECAO is the body which frames, regulates the entire global aviation industry. So that's what I want to put on. So this is one aspect, maybe as part of my introductory thing I will be putting here. Then the second important thing is, since seminar is going to talk about the contemporary trends in air transport and aviation. So what are those contemporary trends? I said the contemporary trends including, I said 5. What are those I mentioned you? 5 contemporary trends: globalization, liberalization, privatization, digitalization, COVIDization. All these are all impacting the aviation industry. Of course, globalization, we all know that. Globalization has a lot of connect to the last one which I said is the COVIDization. I coined, or I'm talking about the COVIDization taking clue from globalization. You all know that what is the globalization? how globalization happened, how what is the impact of globalization, all these things, but it impacted more in the aviation industry. That's why I'm mentioning globalization normally for different people, different contexts. I'm not going to put that, but general understanding globalization is the term used to characterize the process of growing interconnections and interdependence among the nations of the world. So that's the globalization normally we use, and it the impact of globalization we have seen last 60, 70 years particularly. So globalization has different facets of globalization because all these impacted the aviation industry. That's why I'm mentioning you. You have economic globalization, cultural globalization, technological globalization, political globalization, nothing but institutions. All these also impacted the governance of aviation, civil aviation governance. This. So the globalization, of course, the same thing which we are going to look at part of the COVIDization. Today, I can tell you, friends, the international relations, global legal order, based on pre-COVID, post-COVID. That's why I just, emphasizing the globalization. And of course, what is the good, bad about globalization? Of course, there is a good globalization is that, global problems are solved by the globalization. We never thought of solving the global problems, but because of the globalization which helped. That's one. So global problems. But more of negative, globalization, more of negative. Why? Today, if you look at, 200 states are, I said, two-thirds of the global society is consisting of the, third world. Are really these globalization process or policies helped the developing countries? Majority of the developing countries is a question. So that's why globalization has more negatives than the positives. I can say that. If you look at negative impact, positive, I said yes, global problems are solved, global competition happened, all these things. But more negative because globalization impacted the global governance, more particularly developing countries' point of view. So I said it's a profound implications on states for states autonomy. We lost autonomy. We don't have this thing. And one important development part of aviation context, air transport management is sound. We know that sound is important. I just said the basis for airline is sound. Who owns the land, who owns the sky, how sovereignty is, transformed from customary to conventional principle. And today, sovereignty in the context of globalization is, diluted from political sovereignty to economic sovereignty. What do you mean by political sovereignty? How much time I have? Just tell me in 5 minutes, I will find out. Okay? I have 5 minutes. Okay. So the globalization, has a lot of implications I was talking about on the sovereignty. Are really we are sovereign? We mean sovereignty. That's a question mark. Though the philosophy, the jurisprudence of airline is based on the sovereignty. But today, sovereignty is diluted. Sovereignty is in question mark. So that's the other thing. A lot of other changes also. Role of states in the international aviation context or international governance in general, role of states are changing from lawmaker to law taker. You know what do you mean by that? Are we not making law? We have a parliament. Parliament is legislating, but lot of legislations we are taking from the international treaties. That's the context. And today aviation, if you look at entire our airlines based on the Chicago Convention and Warsaw whatever. So all these are all negative impact. And more particularly, one contemporary issue is the when I say the role of states, political to economic lawmaker, and today states are no more actually making their policy. Their policies are dictated by somewhere else, maybe IMF, IBRD. All these things are negative on the globalization. It may, why I just said is that it may happen with the COVID impact. That's why I mentioned that globalization. So then other one is the liberalization. Of course, the impact of globalization has different contexts actually. The globalization, what we call in the United States is the aviation industry deregulation. In 1978, United States of America came out with a law that's called, Aviation Deregulation Act of 1978. That's the beginning of the impact of globalization on the aviation industry. We have looked at, European Union. Again, today they also globalized or, they in the European context, they call liberalized. And all these liberal policies are leading towards the policies, all these liberal policies are now, part of the European Union or European industry that leading to the private participation. Today, in the aviation sector, a lot of private participation is happening. India is the best example. You know that what kind of liberalization happened in the aviation industry. To put it in, two sentences, the Indian aviation industry, if you look at a checkered history, from, when we got independence, there were 9 airlines, private airlines. In 1953, we nationalized. From 1953 to 1994, these 2 airlines, regulated the aviation industry, and customer was suffered a lot. And in 1994, we again enacted a law, Air Corporation Transfer of Undertaking and Repeal Act, that gave again the way for private participation. All these, of course, today last again 20-25 years. If you look at a lot of private airlines, private participation is happening, customer is getting benefit. Of course, every policy has a positive need. We are not supporting this thing, but today I'm just speaking about the customer point of view. So this is the thing, liberalization or privatization. I said last 2 points, just in 2 minutes. I will, of course, tell digitalization, technology. Of course, the one problem we all are fraternity facing is the law technology conflict. Law follows technology. Technological developments needs law. Unfortunately, technology is moving in a faster way, but law is not catching up. That's the whole problem with any industry, including the aviation industry. So today the challenge to the aviation governance is that, how best we can equip with the technology, how we can use this technology. When I say technology, you have again a center for technology, intellectual property. Technology has moved. Okay, earlier we used to talk about, today we talk about new and emerging technologies, net technologies. I call them as the A to Z technology. You name any alphabet, artificial intelligence, big time, to cryptocurrency, to drone technology, you name anything. So today these technologies are happening. It's part of the aviation industry. These technologies are also making challenges to the aviation governance, aviation industry. Of course, the technology is posing major challenge, not only aviation, but general context also. The existing international rules are questioned. When I say the existing question, is sovereignty intact? Again, it's a, sovereignty, jurisdiction. Today, really, earlier we used to talk about jurisdiction based on the territoriality, nationality, all. Today, no more. Cyber crimes, all best examples. So this is the technology is posing, and all these emerging technologies are also posing problem to the civil aviation industry. That is what I said. And last part, I say again, COVIDization. I took clue from the globalization, COVIDization. We all witnessed last 3 years what happened. All industry, all individual, all countries got affected with the COVID. I don't think anybody, any industry, any country which is not, exempted from the COVIDization or COVID impact. But there are certain industries which impacted more, some are less, but almost everybody impacted that. So there is no doubt about that. And more particularly, the aviation industry suffered, airlines, airports, the MRO sector, all these things. So this is where the COVIDization in the broad context actually posing a lot of questions to the global governance in general and governance of aviation in particularly. Are the existing, international air rules are going to be part of this post-COVID? Those kinds of questions now, of course, it is too early to say because last 3 years, we are witnessing these developments. So these are all some of the emerging trends I thought I bring to you. If you ask any question, because of time, I couldn't elaborate certain things, but I will be happy to answer if you think that some thing you have not clarified or you want further clarification, provided that time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation and sharing this wonderful and significant information with our faculties. Now, we have Professor Dr. V. Vijayalakshmi Garu, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Law College, Andhra University, and Dr. Uma Rao, Associate Professor, Geetham School of Law, Geetham University, with us in this Center for Intellectual Property Rights and Technology Airlines. Now, Thank you so much, ma'am, for accepting our invitation. Now, I would like to call Ms. Vani, one of our cabin crew. Before we listen our guest of honor speech, we have a small video to see.
Honorable dignitaries and my dear students, there is a surprise for you. So, like we have discussed in the introduction, the Chinese people have introduced a spy balloon in the airspace of US. So, how the US has attacked against that spy balloon? That video was shared by Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir. So, yeah, kindly watch that, then you will understand the importance of this air and space law. So kindly focus on the screens so that you will get to know how important is the issue.
సౌండ్లెస్ వినిపించట్లేదు సౌండ్ సౌండ్ లేదు ఎంత సౌండ్ కావాలి సౌండ్
సరిపోయింది
On the count of three, please start the video.
line on the coastline, looking for you to provide 6 miles net. Call when you are observing the COI at 6 nautical miles. Just an amendment to the game plan just based on the limited ability for Eagle 1 to point for Frank 1. Eagle 1 will just marshal and commit north in a trail of Frank 1. Will still establish role of Frank shooter, Eagle support, but it'll help geometry to help point 100. Frank 1 engaged. Charlie Zulu 535. Bullseye 05015. 64,000 is track. Frank 1 is proceeding outbound. Copy restriction. Restate COI 1. Charlie Zulu 535. Bullseye 05015. Heading 140 left. Eagle support. Angels as desired. Point COI 1. Charlie Zulu 5. Frank. Attack heading 140. Profile 1.3 Mach. Climbing 50K delivery. 5 miles. Frank 1. Black 1. That is a T2. The balloon is complete. Storm is out. Frank 1. Eagle 1 is piercing metal shaft cloud, so I got those metal breaking apart and room for that. Frank 1. Eagle 1.
Thank you, passengers. There's been a lot of turbulence in this plane, but we still hope that you would be seated and the rest of the journey goes on smoothly. Now I request Vani to introduce our guest of honor, Dr. Sandeepa Bhatt sir, to the audience.
Good morning, everyone. I take immense pleasure in introducing today's guest of honor, Professor Dr. Sandeepa Bhatt. Professor Dr. Sandeepa Bhatt started his academic career in 2003 at National Law School of India, University, Bangalore, and joined the West Bengal National University of Juridical Sciences, Kolkata, in 2007. He has done his specialization in international law and business and trade law from the University of Mysore and did his PhD in the field of space law. Dr. Bhatt has the experience of researching on 5 major research projects sponsored by World Bank, ISRO, the WB Judicial Academy, Ministry of Justice, and Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. He is also a member of Board of Advisors of Global Network Against Weapons and Nuclear Power in Space, United States of America. Further, he has the distinction of being the member of American Society of International Law, International Academy of Space Law, Russia, and International Institute of Space Law, France. Dr. Bhatt is founding editor-in-chief of Asian Journal of Air and Space Law. He has published 4 books on space law and 3 books on medical law. In addition, he has published more than 50 articles in journals of international and national review, which include, but not limited to, Journal of Space Law, Annals of Air and Space Law, New Space Proceedings of Colloquium on Law of Outer Space. He also has the distinction of being the member of Indian Space Research Organization's Expert Advisory Group for drafting the National Space Act for India. Now, I request our honorable guest of honor, Dr. Professor Sandeepa Bhatt, to address the gatherers.
Thank you so much for that elaborate introduction. I was wondering when actually the lights were switched off and I will see an empty hall after that. Fortunately, you are all staying back. Thank you so much for that. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Surya Prakash, my distinguished colleagues on the dais, as well as off the dais, and my dear friends. Very good morning to all of you. It's indeed a great privilege to be a guest of honor here and standing in the same podium again, right? So previously I had also been here earlier, right? So I should thank the organizers for giving me this the opportunity to address this gathering. Now, Professor Balakrishna Reddy has already given you almost an overview of everything about aviation law. As he rightly pointed out, we can speak on aviation law for more than a semester. At the same point in time, we can also give it in a gist, like what he did in half an hour. My presentation is more focused, and I don't want to actually once again repeat actually whatever he has already presented. And it's more focused in terms of what he has basically spoken in the first half. He basically spoke about public air law, private air law, and also actually a kind of a penal air law. And again, my presentation is carried forward from the public air law perspective, which he has basically pointed out. Right? So I'm looking into the dispute resolution mechanism. In the international public air law, how exactly it has become a kind of a flawed system. Of course, it was flawed since the beginning, but now in the 2018 judgment of International Court of Justice, right? So which I'm going to highlight actually, it's creating more problem. I'll try to stop a stat. Chicago Convention, as he said already, a kind of a rundown. You have to follow the Chicago Convention for almost everything except the liability and the penal laws. It speaks about sovereignty, it speaks about freedom, what freedoms are available to the states in other airspace. It speaks about registration, nationality of the aircraft, right? It has provisions with respect to the airworthiness of aircraft, licensing of the personnel, everything, almost everything with respect to civil aviation. And he has rightly pointed out that there are 19 annexes to the Chicago Convention, which have been developed over the period of time, and each one is updated. That's how actually it's a kind of a living code. Right? It's not something just entered in 1944, but also these annexes over the period of time update the Chicago Convention, and states do follow these annexes. Right? So that's why there is no doubt that it is the major source of international aviation law which we are having at present. Apart from providing the major source of international aviation law, Chicago Convention also has got a body in the form of ICAO, International Civil Aviation Organization, right? For supervising the implementation of different norms in the international level, we have a body called ICAO. If you look into the second part of the Chicago Convention, Article 43 to 96, all of them deal with actually the different aspects of the International Civil Aviation Organization. ICAO has been very successful in terms of different aspects of economic cooperation. There is no doubt, right? Because there were different discriminations which were played in the aviation field by different countries in terms of the international civil aviation. ICAO Council has played a predominant role in eliminating all those kind of discrimination and also to further the safe and orderly growth of international civil aviation. No doubt. But at the same point in time, ICAO as a dispute settlement body, how it has done over the period of time is something which I'm going to touch upon. It has a council, right, consisting of 36 members, right? Just like the United Nations, you have Security Council. Here also there is an ICAO Council. 36 members actually are represented from different countries to the ICAO Council. This council also acts as a dispute settlement body under the Chicago Convention. Right? This acts as a dispute settlement body, and how it has been functioning, just let me actually discuss. Before that, let me discuss the pertinent article. I'm using the slides for the purpose of actually highlighting the provision in the article. Article 84, which is primarily on the dispute settlement in the Chicago Convention, it says that, let me actually go sentence by sentence. Only two sentences I have highlighted. There is other parts also, but these two are the most significant ones. If any disagreement between two or more contracting states relating to interpretation or application of this convention and its annexes cannot be settled by negotiation, it shall, on the application of any state concerned in the disagreement, be decided by the council. I have highlighted certain portions therein. First of all, ICAO Council has got the jurisdiction to look into only those matters which fall within the ambit of interpretation or application of this convention, that is the Chicago Convention, and its annexes, the 19 annexes which I'm basically pointing out, right? So only with respect to them, the ICAO Council has got the jurisdiction to deal with the case. Second, there is a requirement of negotiation, right? It says if there is failure of the negotiation, then you can reach the Council of the ICAO, right? So therefore, negotiation is the first method. Only upon the failure of the negotiation, one can go to the ICAO Council for the settlement of the dispute. That's what the first part basically speaks of. Last part, the other sentence which I have highlighted there is, any contracting state may, subject to Article 85, appeal from the decision of the Council to an ad hoc arbitral tribunal agreed upon with the parties to the dispute or to the Permanent Court of International Justice. Of course, it was a 1944 agreement, so PCIJ was there. But currently, whatever jurisdiction has been conferred to the PCIJ are vested with the ICJ now. International Court of Justice actually enjoys this privilege. But please keep in mind, second sentence is applicable only in case of louder, appeal. Right? There is only an appellate jurisdiction which is vested with the tribunal or the International Court of Justice. Original jurisdiction is only with the council, right? If any matter has to be settled, the original jurisdiction is only with council. Either you settle through the negotiation, if not council. That's it. There is no option to go to the ICJ directly. There is no option to go to the tribunal directly, right? So this is how the dispute settlement mechanism has been structured under Article 84 of the Chicago Convention. Now, how it has been functioning over the period of time? I should say at a failure. Starting from the first case itself, we happened to be the first complainant, right? So India complained first in 1952 when Pakistan suspended the right of overflight, right? Our right of overflight was suspended in 1952. It was a problem for us to transact with Afghanistan. We had a huge trade with Afghanistan during that time, right? So therefore, India complained to the council about the suspension of the flight which has been made by Pakistan. Now, council deliberated, started looking into the matter. Unfortunately, they found that there was no procedure which has been established for the dispute settlement. They have been entrusted with the power, but there was no separate procedure to settle the dispute. So they asked the parties themselves to resolve the dispute. That's it. They said, okay, you settle the dispute. We are not actually in a mood to settle this dispute. So that's how the first approach of the council has been. And in fact, in 1957, they developed the rules, right? So this was a 1952 case. 1957, they developed the rules. But whatever it may be, first case itself showed a kind of a wrong beginning. And that wrong beginning continued in subsequent cases. Attitude of actually the council has been a kind of a no-no for the dispute settlement. Few cases submitted by the European states, and subsequently, once again, Pakistan submitted a case. In all those cases, there was a kind of actually, what I should say, a stalemate. Nothing concrete has come up before the council, or no decision has been taken by the council. Of course, there are few reasons why the council has failed. First of all, I should say that, as Professor Reddy was also pointing out, the council is a political body. Right? It consists of actually the bureaucrats, state representatives, not the lawyers. Right? Not the lawyers. So, how can a bureaucrat decide a case independently, that too without taking any instruction from their state? Right? A kind of a biased system, so they were actually not tailor-made for the purpose of legal decision making. So that is the very reason why this political body's role as a dispute settlement body failed to a greater extent. It failed to a greater extent. Then, size of the body and length of the procedure. Council consists of 36 members at present. Of course, it started with 21 earlier. Now it consists of 36 members. With a division bench or maybe 3-judge bench, so much of dissenting opinion coming every time, imagine about a 36 members body deciding a case. Right? The size of the body itself is not tailor-made for the purpose of making any kind of a decision or settling the disputes between the states. Added to that, the length of the proceedings. Right? So they used to convene the meetings, they used to actually defer the decision, especially because they were waiting for specific instruction from their government. They can't decide on their own. Right? It is not application of the law and deciding the case. If that is the case, you can be an independent decision maker. But since it's a political body, they have to wait for the instruction from the government, which was very apparent in the Pakistan versus India case of 1971. Right? I was referring to that earlier also. I will refer later and in detail I will just discuss. Pakistan versus India 1971. When Pakistan made a reference, council members were meeting to look into the issue, but every time they were delaying the decision. They were telling we are postponing. Why? Because they were waiting for an instruction from their respective government. Everyone was waiting. One might have got an instruction, they would like to proceed forward. Others haven't got the instruction, they would say that no, halt. Right? We will take a decision later. So that's how actually this kind of a tug of war was clearly evident in Pakistan versus India case. So one can imagine how lengthy would be the proceeding, how costly it would be by virtue of that. You need a best of a best lawyer to fight your case at the ICAO council level, and you spend all those money, and council members would say, they will say that no, we will defer the decision. We will keep it for the next meeting. So one can imagine how difficult it is to manage with the size and the length of the proceedings of the ICAO council. So historically, I would like to say that yes, the ICAO dispute settlement mechanism has not been successful. There have been problems, and that's the reason why very few cases were referred to the ICAO council over the period of time. Now comes an interesting decision in 2018. This is out of the Middle East conflict. All of you must be aware of the fact that the Qatar has been banned by the Middle East friends, right? So-called friends. Yes. So 2013 and 2014, they had the agreements, the Riyadh agreements, right? Especially for the cooperation in the Gulf region, countries like UAE, Bahrain, Egypt, and the Qatar, all of them have entered into actually the agreements, the series of agreements for the purpose of establishing the peace in the Middle East countries. Right? The peace treaty has been entered by them. In 2017, most of the Middle East countries started contending that Qatar is violating the Riyadh agreements. Right? The Qatar is violating the Riyadh agreements. Therefore, they went ahead with the countermeasures under the Riyadh agreement. Countermeasures in the sense the sanctions, the prohibitions. Right? So they imposed the ban. I think you must have read in the newspaper, right? The different kind of bans which have come against the Qatar. One of the parts of it has been the restrictions about aviation. Right? The Qatari registered airlines were not allowed to fly in these countries. There is a restriction with respect to the flight. This triggered a complaint by Qatar to the ICAO Council. There was a complaint to the ICAO Council because they wanted to enjoy this privilege of using the airspace. And if you look under the Chicago Convention, there is a freedom available to other countries to fly over and land for non-traffic purposes. Right? Chicago Convention read with the Air Transit Agreement. There is a separate agreement which is also agreed along with the Chicago Convention, International Air Transit Agreement. They confer two freedoms, right to fly over without landing, right to halt for non-traffic purposes, technical purposes, emergency landing. Right? These are conferred. Now these Middle East countries are banning Qatar from doing it, exercising its right. So Qatar filed a complaint against these Middle East countries in the ICAO Council, saying that they have a right of overflight as well as landing for technical reasons that has been taken off against the Chicago Convention obligations. Now, one of the preliminary objections of the responding states, Bahrain, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and all, their preliminary objections has been with respect to the jurisdiction of ICAO Council. ICAO Council doesn't have the jurisdiction because this is not a matter under the Chicago Convention. That was the argument, right? That's what they basically said. But Council said, no, we have a jurisdiction, so we will proceed forward. They went ahead with actually the case. An appeal was made to the ICJ by those countries, the Bahrain, Egypt, Saudi as well as UAE. They made an appeal to the ICJ saying that the exercise of the jurisdiction by the ICAO Council itself is wrong. Right? They cannot exercise the jurisdiction. But the ICJ held in favor of the jurisdiction, rejected this appeal and said that actually there is a jurisdiction available to the ICAO Council. Right? They can look into the matter. Out of this judgment, two major issues come up. Two major issues which we need to debate. how exactly actually this is a problematic judgment in light of the ICAO's dispute settlement mechanism. Now, first is about the subject matter itself. I mentioned that actually the applicant countries basically argued that this is not within the ambit of the Chicago Convention. Why? Because their argument is that all these prohibitions are imposed under what? Riyadh agreements. Right? The Riyadh agreements, they are the cooperation treaty to establish the peace. Right? And the Riyadh agreements are under the general ambit of public international law rather than Chicago Convention or aviation law. One portion may be under the aviation law, but the agreement as a whole is under the public international law. Countermeasures are primarily taken under this whole gambit of public international law, not just under aviation law. Their countermeasure is that there are different provisions of Riyadh agreement which has been violated, not just aviation. Are you getting it? Right? So therefore, it is a wider ambit, and ICAO Council does not have a jurisdiction to deal with every aspect of public international law. ICAO's mandate is mentioned clearly. That is only under this convention, that is the Chicago Convention and its annexes. Any interpretation of this convention, not public international law convention. Right? So that is why the argument was that Council should not exercise. It cannot actually test the legality holistically. The countermeasures, whatever are taken, if it want to test the legality, it has to look into the aspect of public international law, which is not within the jurisdiction of the Council. Right? So that is why the argument was that the Council is not having the jurisdiction. ICJ, you have the sufficient time? Right? Okay. Yeah, ICJ referred back to its judgment of India versus Pakistan. I referred just before, right? The 1972 judgment. What happened in this case was that 1965 Indo-Pak war, right? You know about it. In the 1965 war, both the countries have suspended the right of overflight of each other. Right? Both India and Pakistan. Of course, it is permissible. Chicago Convention, Article 18(9) permits, in case of war, suspension of obligations. Right? Or even in case of emergency also, one can suspend obligations. That's permissible. So during war, both India and Pakistan have suspended the obligations under the Chicago Convention, and right of overflight were taken off. But the war ended with the famous declaration. What was that? The Tashkent Declaration. Yes, right. It ended with the Tashkent Declaration. In the Tashkent Declaration, both the parties agreed for allowing the right of overflight without landing. It's a peace treaty, and in the peace treaty, they once again restored the right. You can fly over, but without the right of a landing. So that's how they agreed in the Tashkent Declaration. Then in 1971, two of the Kashmiri separatist group members, they hijacked an Indian airline aircraft to Karachi. Right, a jumbo-bound Indian airline the aircraft was hijacked to Karachi, and that was blown up allegedly with the complexity of the Pakistani government. Right, this happened in 1971. Soon after that, government of India once again imposed a ban. Pakistani flight should not actually fly over India. So they banned the Pakistani flight in 1971 once again. And this became a big problem. Why? Anyone can tell me?
So Bangladesh.
Bangladesh was not liberated, so it was East Pakistan at that time, right? So connectivity between East and the West Pakistan was only through the Indian airspace. Otherwise, taking a long route is very difficult for them. And that was the time when the turmoil was also happening, 1971, Bangladesh liberation, right? So they wanted to have the best available connection to East Pakistan. So immediately, they brought a case to the council. Here also the same argument was put forward by India. India objected to the jurisdiction, saying that entire this thing has come out of the Tashkent Declaration, not out of the Chicago Convention. Right of overflight was given under the Tashkent Declaration. Now they are suspending this right under the Tashkent Declaration, not under the Chicago Convention. That was the argument which has been put forward, but ICJ rejected this argument by them. It said that actually, it referred to Article 82 and 83 of the Chicago Convention to be very precise. Gave a wider interpretation, because what they said was that under 82, no state can enter into a contrary obligation than what they have undertaken under the Chicago Convention. And if they have entered any contrary obligation, they should also relieve themselves from that. That's what basically 82 says. And 83 speaks about registration of any treaty or any instrument with respect to civil aviation under the Chicago Convention. If somebody enters into some agreement, Professor Reddy was basically telling about bilateral agreement or maybe regionalism, something about the aviation, if they have entered into, they should also register with the Council of the ICAO as per Article 83. So ICJ said that by virtue of all these things, Tashkent Declaration's obligation need to be read within the ambit of the Chicago Convention. It is in consonance with the Chicago Convention. Therefore, suspension of this right is not only under the Tashkent Declaration, but also under the Chicago Convention. Right? That's why the Council has got the jurisdiction. So this is the logical argument which the ICJ has brought in India versus Pakistan. And similar kind of an argument you can also find in the nuclear test cases, wider jurisdictional aspect. Nuclear test cases also the ICJ has referred to it. So by virtue of that, again in this Qatar ban case, ICJ says that Council has got the jurisdiction. Riyadh agreement is within the Chicago Convention. Therefore, any aspect of the aviation can be looked into by the ICAO Council. Now the question is, we had a similar kind of experience at the WTO level also. Professor Reddy also teaches trade law. I also teach trade law, coincidentally. I don't know, somehow we are into air and space law along with that trade law. Similar experience we had at the WTO level. The WTO dispute settlement bodies, panel as well as the appellate body, of late have started to look into public international law issues also while deciding the trade law issues. Like environmental issues, public health issues, labor rights issues, human rights issues, different aspects are also brought in within the ambit of actually the trade dispute, and decisions were made at the WTO level. It was running well till 2019, and I don't know how many of you are aware of the fact that the WTO dispute settlement body has been completely paralyzed after 2019. 10th December 2019. Any idea what happened? What is that? WTO appellate body is no more functional. The appellate body, which was actually holding the sanctity of the WTO agreement, is no more functional because the United States has objected and it has actually not allowed the appointment of the members of the appellate body. It has stopped the appointment of the members. So consequently, the WTO appellate body has completely stopped its functioning since 2019. One of the major objections of the United States with respect to the appellate body has been this itself, that it is encroaching upon the domain which are over and above what has been negotiated by them. Because treaties are supposed to be looked into in light of the negotiation, how the parties have negotiated. If the parties have negotiated not on environmental issues, not on the labor rights issues, etc., how can a particular body look into those issues? Right? Because it is against the intention of the party. Professor Reddy again was telling about the intention, right? So, party's intention. So, that is against that. So, precisely because of that reason, a vibrant dispute settlement body has been paralyzed at the WTO level, primarily because of the overreach which has been argued by the countries like the United States. So, that is why a concern is there even at the ICAO Council level with respect to this. Right? That's the first major problem or major issue arising out of this. But this is much more problematic than what I just pointed out. Question of negotiation. I just made it very clear to you that the first step in the dispute settlement is negotiation. If it fails, you have to go for council. There is a rules also actually, the Article 2G of the ICAO rules. I refer to the rules for the settlement of differences entered in 1957. Right? Rules says that any complainant, anyone who is bringing a case before the ICAO Council must have this in the statement. In their actually the company or in their actually brief, what they're going to submit, they have to mention this. Negotiation to settle the disagreement had taken place between the parties, but were not successful. That indicates the importance whatever has been given to the negotiation as the first means of settlement of dispute. Right? So they should specifically mention that they have attempted the negotiation and failed to reach a conclusion. That is something absolutely required, even as per Article 2G of the ICAO rules. Now, where is that negotiation in this case? Right? Qatar did not go for a negotiation. It did not make any formal request to any of the countries for the negotiation. So, appellants, Bahrain, Egypt, Saudi as well as UAE, contended that they missed the first step, therefore Council cannot exercise the jurisdiction. Negotiation should have been entered, and upon failure of the negotiation, the council should have exercised jurisdiction. Right? That didn't happen in this case, was the argument. Interestingly, ICJ brought in a different kind of an interpretation. ICJ said that there is no requirement of a formalistic approach to the negotiation. Right? What is required is a theoretical impossibility. In this case, the environment was so hostile between the Middle East countries that there was a kind of a theoretical impossibility to negotiate. A presumption, to be very precise, nothing more than that. Right? Whether Qatar had done a positive step in terms of negotiation, a formal negotiation under the ICAO or not, is not significant as long as you show a theoretical impossibility to negotiate. So a lower standard of negotiation, requirement of negotiation. ICJ adopted this and said that in the circumstances of this case, there is a theoretical impossibility, and we consider that Qatar has complied with the requirement of negotiation. This is more problematic. Again, I will go back to Professor Reddy's presentation, that in the international level, most of these things need to be settled through what? Cooperation between the states, negotiation between the states, and you are actually discarding that itself. You are completely discarding that. Look into the WTO again as another example. If you refer to the WTO dispute settlement understanding, there is a mandatory consultation. Article 4 of the DSU clearly speaks about a mandatory consultation. 60 days of consultation has to be exhausted before reaching any panel. No formal dispute is possible without exhausting this 60 days. Why is this important? This is absolutely important because we are moving from adversarial dispute settlement mechanism to a non-adversarial dispute settlement mechanism. It is not approaching the court of law and court of law saying that you win the case, you lose the case. Rather, amicably settling it and then having a non-adversarial dispute settlement mechanism. We are moving into that, right? So mediation, conciliation, negotiation becomes more important in that. Just 2 minutes, I'll find out. Yeah, right. So in the WTO level, consultation has played a pivotal role in settling many differences before they have become disputes itself. There are many instances wherein one party has actually gone for a consultation, other party understood the problem of this party, and they have actually agreed to settle out the issues. Because in many cases, when a state is taking a measure, be it a trade measure or maybe any prohibition or restriction, they will not be able to understand the problem faced by other countries. Other country can put forward that problem only in the process of consultation or negotiation. Right? And if the former is convinced about the problem of the latter, they themselves would settle the dispute at that level without even reaching to the next level. So that very basis has been given a kind of actually a subsidiary importance by virtue of the ICJ's judgment. So that's why I say that actually this is a flawed system of the dispute settlement. From beginning there is a problem because actually they're the political the players, not actually the people with the legal background. But still understandable because in the international level settlements can be done through the political negotiation, etc. But ICJ's judgment goes against the face of it, saying that negotiation is no more formal required. So that's the very reason why I should say that we have to rethink about this approach and we have to establish a formal system, especially to look into the major cases of international aviation. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for the informative speech. Now I request our Vice Chancellor, sir, to felicitate our guest of honor and our chief guest. I request our Registrar, sir, to accompany our Vice Chancellor, sir, in the felicitation. you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Now I request Jogi Naidu, sir, to proceed with the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, one and all. Firstly, I would like to thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, for introducing this particular course in DSNLU, which made us understand particular civil aviation law, the significance of it, what is the prospectus in this particular sector and area, right? And then after that, we have approached him, sir, why don't we conduct a particular seminar? Sir is readily agreed and said, yes, this is a dynamic subject, and all the students should know about it because it is an unexplored area. And then we were discussing about the resource persons for this particular aspect is concerned. Undoubtedly, there are two stalwarts in entire India, from east to west, or maybe east to south, I could say, because eastern part of India, Sandeep Bhatt sir is there. Of course, the head is Balakrishna Reddy sir, who has been anchoring this particular cause to reach to each and every person who is interested in this particular subject area. It is a niche area. I can tell you a small example with respect to how important this particular subject is concerned. Example would be like, let us say there is a flight from Visakhapatnam to Dubai, right? There is and then the flight comes from, like the passenger who is traveling from Visakhapatnam to Dubai, and another passenger in the same flight who is traveling from Visakhapatnam to Hyderabad. Unfortunately, it should not happen, but unfortunately, there is an accident happens, and both passengers on the same age, same qualification, and they died. And what is the compensation? With respect to the international passenger, the compensation amount as per the, I'm trying to talk about the no fault liability. The compensation is for the international passenger 1 crore 30 lakhs approximately, because the SDR means special drawing rights. It comes down to 1 lakh 13,000 SDR on the present day, and the amount is come down to around 1 crore 30 lakh odd. But whereas for the domestic passenger, on the same day, same flight, the neighbor passengers, this passenger's compensation would be 25 lakh 50,000 rupees. And is it the person who is traveling in this particular flight, the leg of Visakhapatnam to Hyderabad, is inferior to that of the international passenger? Only that the price is hardly any difference between these two passengers. But then the compensation amount is quite a lot different. So these are the aspects which has not been addressed by anyone or any forum, or maybe the government of India is not taking appropriate cause with respect to this particular aspect is concerned. So this is a problematic thing, and everyone has to understand, and that particular passenger's relatives are going to approach you as you are going to be an advocate, and you should have had some sort of idea how to argue, where to argue, why to argue this particular case, and what would be the right amount of compensation to compensate this particular bereaved family passenger. That's the one point, right? And then recent example, I'm sure all of you might have read in various newspapers and channels, the flight which has, one of the passengers bought a first class ticket in an Air India flight, and the co-passenger have urinated on her, right? And then let's say that particular passenger has approached you, and what is the right forum? What could be the right compensation? Is it Air India is supposed to be made liable, or is that particular passenger is supposed to be made liable? Where is the law, and what is that particular forum through which you can claim that particular compensation? So these are many aspects in which you can always understand, right? Sandeep Bhatt sir is already addressed with you with respect to the international overflying rights, right? So whenever something happens between India and Pakistan, and what Pakistan does is it automatically closes down its airspace, because of which any flights which are heading towards to the Europe or American continents, they are supposed to take at least extra 90 minutes, and that is going to be a huge loss for the airlines. It is runs into some sort of billions of dollars. Is it only for the Indian-based airlines is going to be lost? The answer would be no, and it is definitely a big loss for the Pakistan currency or Pakistan's coffers. It is like approximately it was a $400 billion loss for them because they have suspended these particular rights to Indian-based carriers. So these are the aspects in which nobody has understanding about it. And if anybody is interested in this particular area, there is a plenty of scope, as it has been rightly been pointed out by Professor Balakrishna Reddy sir, who is our chief guest on today's date. And within a short span of time, we have asked appointment to grace the occasion. He said it yes, because he wanted to interact with the students, and his main motto or communication to the students is this particular area has to be explored, and please one of the person, because you will be the first person maybe in this particular area, right? So the issues are many, but it's hardly been explored, because unlike earlier, it was completely with the government domain, but whereas it is come down to the private domain, and there is plenty of scope. There are many airplanes are coming out, and then many airports are coming up. If this is the place, this is the time for you to pick up this particular challenge of understanding this particular law. There is a plenty of scope. So that is an idea which Professor Balakrishna Reddy sir wanted to say, and he has already said about the PPP model. Public law, if it is going to be a public law, as I told you, the narration is between any of the war flying rights and all those things. Those things would be understood in the freedoms, 9 freedoms what we speak about, or maybe Bermuda 1 freedom and Bermuda 2 freedom. Those aspects would be covered, and public law, private law, what is that compensation amount, etc., would be considered and understood under the private law. Penal law, suppose somebody has committed some sort of wrong which is not supposed to be committed by them, then that is going to be prosecuted through the penal law. So these particular laws have to be understood in precisely for that particular purpose. This is the niche area where you can always explore and then give a lot of give some sort of. It's not that you only get the money, but also you can serve the nation, right? It is not every unlike earlier, only the rich people used to fly, but in today's date, everyone's thing is going to fly. So that's the reason all of our interests are being attached to this particular sector. Again, sir always says that generally population is a bane, but then it is for this particular sector, population is the boon, because there are many people who are interested to fly in this particular thing, right? And then I'd like to thank our guest of honor for this event, Professor Sandeepa Bhatt sir, who is exploring this particular unexplored areas and is contributing, motivating the students length and breadth of entire India, not only in India, but also he is a visitor of two topmost universities in this particular area, that is McGill University and Leiden University, is a visitor therein. So, sir, we are profusely thank you for accepting our invitation. And I would like to thank our Professor Vijayalakshmi ma'am for gracing the occasion. And then, of course, I would like to thank CIPR chairperson, Professor Sri Sudha ma'am. And I would like to thank our Honorable Registrar Sir, Professor Madhusudan Rao Garu, for giving us an opportunity to conduct this particular program with respect to the logistics are concerned. And then I would like to thank our Professor of Eminence, Rajendra Prasad Garu, for gracing the occasion. And I would like to thank participants who have shown a lot of interest to participate, discuss, deliberate, and on these particular areas where it has not been ironed out completely. So maybe the question and answers, sir, is going to permit us. One of the students wanted to ask. That depends on answers. Is it possible, can you ask in technical question, or maybe we have a panel discussion in that we can ask questions?
So everybody has to be come back to ask questions.
I think we have already circulated a form on question and answers. Maybe you can fill it up. Those questions can be, can specify to which speaker you want to pose this particular question. I think VC sir is always on tight schedule. He's saying very fast.
Then you must attend the technical session. Okay.
So, thank you, my colleagues who have attended this particular program, and then the students despite your regular classes, and this is going to be one of the learning experience for all of you. And thanks to the technical team who have given all this particular support to us technically to be good. Right? Thank you one and all for gracing the occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dear passengers, now the flight will rest for a layover, and we will start once again at 12:30 with our technical session 1. We have 2 technical sessions simultaneously going on, and we hope that you'll also be present during our technical sessions as well as for the panel discussion in the afternoon. You have a panel discussion starting at 2:30 and it will go on till 3 and 3:15. Thank you. A panel discussion is paper presentation is already going on in LH1. Interested students can go on, and also paper presentation will start here at 12:30. Interested students for the panel discussion must go to the LH1 for the panel discussion.
చిన్నగా తెచ్చాను అది చెప్పాను సరికి చెరలే పట్టింది ఉన్నాయి కదా పెద్ద కదా పైన నేను
One has snacks. One.
Isn't surprised? Thank you for coming.
Snacks. I'll get snacks. Okay.
एक दो को लेके आ तो वापस से अरेंज कर सकता ठीक है तो एक लीगल ऑर्डर
ये अपन स्टार्ट मैं को ना बैठ वाला बैठ में
Not already. Often taking the और my headset phone is taking
మీరు డైల్ చేస్తున్న నంబర్ ప్రస్తుతం బిజీగా ఉంది
దయచేసి కొంత సమయం తర్వాత మళ్ళీ ప్రయత్నించండి. आपके द्वारा डायल किया गया नंबर अभी
మహేష్ సార్ స్ట్రీమింగ్ ఎండ్ చేసేస్తున్నాను. హలో సార్, స్ట్రీమింగ్ ఎండ్ చేసేయచ్చు, ఎండ్ స్ట్రీమింగ్ అని కొట్టేనా? అయిపోయింది సార్. ఎండ్ స్ట్రీమ్ కొట్టేస్తే మళ్ళీ ఆఫ్టర్నూన్ ప్యానల్ డిస్కషన్ ఉంటుంది, దానికి పెడదామా ఇంకా అక్కర్లేదు అంటారా?
నువ్వు నేనే వ్యూవర్స్ ఉన్నాం, అక్కడ కూడా లేడబ్బా.
అవునా? సరే సార్, 56 వ్యూస్ అని ఉన్నాయి.
నా రూమ్ నుంచి నేను లైవ్ చూస్తున్నా, నేను ఒకటే ఉన్నాను వ్యూవర్.
సరే సార్, అయితే ఇంకా ఆపేద్దాంలే. అల్లో పేపర్ ప్రెజెంటేషన్ ఉన్నది. సరే సరే,
పెట్టకపోయినా పర్లేదు కానీ మరి వ్యూవర్షిప్ లేకపోతే
ఎండ్ కొట్టేస్తున్నాం సార్. అయితే
తీసుకుంటారు, లేకపోతే తీసుకుంటాం.